All right, NEET aspirants, listen up. Gearing up for your exams, you have landed in the perfect spot. We're about to do a super high-yield, rapid revision of body fluids and circulation, and I've packed it with tricks to make sure all these concepts really, truly stick. So what's our game plan? We're going to blitz through 5 key areas. We'll start with the fluids of life, then jump into blood groups and compatibility. After that, we'll map out the heart's blueprint, decode its rhythm and signals, and finally, we'll cover vitals and what happens when things fail. Let's dive right in. Okay, section 1, fluids of life. We're starting with the absolute fundamentals here. We're talking blood, plasma, and lymph. To remember the main components of blood, I've got a super simple story for you. Raju weds Priya. Just remember that. R for Raju is for RBCs, our oxygen carriers. W for weds is for WBCs, our defense system. And P for Priya is for platelets, which give us protection through clotting. See? Simple, right? So what's actually in the plasma? Easy. Just remember this little acronym, CAPS-G. That's C, clotting factors, A, antibodies, P, proteins, S, salts, and G, glucose. And hey, make sure you pay extra close attention to those proteins because their functions are a very common topic on the exam. Next up, we've got lymph. The easiest way to remember its main jobs is just with 3 words: liquid, lipid, and defense. It returns tissue liquid back to the blood, it absorbs lipids or fats using lacteals, and it provides defense as part of our immunity. And just so you know, that fat absorption by lacteals is a really high yield point, so don't you forget it. All right, section 2, blood groups and compatibility. Now this is a topic that examiners absolutely love to ask about, so let's get into the ABO system and that tricky Rh factor. The ABO system is all about who can give blood to whom, and the easiest way to lock this down is with a simple mnemonic. AB accepts all blood, which makes it the universal recipient, and O can only give, making it the universal donor. Trust me, this concept pops up on exams all the time. Now, for that Rh factor, it can lead to a really serious condition called erythroblastosis fetalis. Here's the deal. If an Rh-negative mother has an Rh-positive baby, her body can start making antibodies. It's not usually a problem for the first baby, but if she has a second Rh-positive baby, those antibodies can attack its red blood cells. This is a frequently tested concept, so make sure you've got it down cold. Let's move on to the pump itself, the heart. In section 3, we're going to break down its blueprint, its chambers, the flow of blood, and the valves, all in a way that's super easy to remember. The path of blood through the heart is actually a really logical 4-step journey. Just remember, it goes from the right atrium to the right ventricle, then over to the left atrium and down to the left ventricle. The absolute key here is knowing that the right side handles deoxygenated blood going to the lungs, and the left side handles the fresh, oxygenated blood coming from the lungs to go out to the rest of the body. So what stops all that blood from flowing backward? The valves, of course, and the trick to remember them is tri, pull, bav. Tri is for tricuspid, pull is for pulmonary, B is for bicuspid, which is also called the mitral valve. And listen, this one is a classic NEET question. And AV is for the aortic valve. This slide shows you exactly where each one is. Okay, everyone listen closely. This next section is, well, it's absolutely crucial. It's one of the most heavily tested areas for sure. We're talking about the heartbeat itself, the cardiac cycle, the electrical signals that drive it, and how we measure all of it. Let's make the cardiac cycle easy with the school bell story. Think of it like a school day. First, you have atrial systole. That's the atria contracting, like taking attendance. It only lasts about 0.1 seconds. Then comes the big one, ventricular systole. This is exam time, lasting 0.3 seconds. And finally, everything relaxes during joint diastole. That's the lunch break, and it lasts for 0.4 seconds. And what about those famous heart sounds, lub and dub? Well, lub is the first sound, and it's caused by the AV valves, the tricuspid and bicuspid, snapping shut. Dub is the second sound, and that comes from the semilunar valves, the aortic and pulmonary, closing. Knowing which valves cause which sound is a key point for your exam. The heart's electrical signal follows a very specific path, and you can remember it with this: SA, AV, H, P. It starts at the SA node. That's the pacemaker. Then it travels to the AV node, goes down the bundle of His, and then spreads out through the Purkinje fibers. And hey, remember, the pacemaker's location in the right atrium is a very common question. Now, how does all this electrical activity actually show up on an ECG? Well, here's a great phrase to remember the waves. Please quit smoking. The P wave stands for atrial depolarization. That's the atria contracting. The QRS complex is ventricular depolarization, and you have to know this one. It's an extremely high-yield topic. And finally, the T wave is ventricular repolarization, when the ventricles reset. All right, we're on to our final section, vitals and failures. Let's look at how we measure the system's performance and, what happens when things start to go wrong. A key vital sign, of course, is blood pressure. The normal value is 120/80. So what does that mean? Well, the top number, 120, is the systolic pressure. That's the pressure during the ventricular contraction. And the bottom number, 80, is the diastolic pressure. That's the pressure when the ventricles are relaxed. Our bodies use an incredibly efficient system called double circulation. Basically, there's one circuit that goes from the heart to the lungs and back. That's pulmonary circulation. The other circuit goes from the heart to the whole body and back, and that's systemic circulation. So what's the big deal? The main advantage is that it prevents oxygenated and deoxygenated blood from mixing. It's super, super efficient. And when things do go wrong, here are the basics. Hypertension, that's just high pressure. Coronary artery disease, think of it like a fat jam in the arteries. Angina, that's chest pain because of low oxygen. And heart failure is exactly what it sounds like. The pump itself starts to fail. Okay, this slide is your golden ticket for a last-minute revision. It's a fantastic super trick to connect everything we've talked about. Just remember, blood blah day for blood, lymph, and double circulation, heart HVP for the heart structure, valves, and pacemaker, cycle CSE for the cardiac cycle, sounds, and ECG, and last, disease D for all the disorders. So with all this information, where should you really focus your final revision? Right here. This is your exam hit list. These are the topics that have been asked about most frequently in recent years. As you can see, things like the cardiac cycle, that QRS complex, blood groups, and the mitral valve, they show up again and again. This is where you'll get the most bang for your buck. And we'll end with this thought. You've worked so hard to memorize the what, the names, the parts, the pathways. But for the exam, can you confidently explain the why behind each of these processes? That's the real key that turns memorization into true understanding. Good luck with your revision.